It started as a vibration. At 10:39 in the evening, the 2,000 residents of Longarone felt the earth begin to shake. It wasn't an earthquake. It was the sky collapsing. When they looked up, the moon had vanished. In its place was a wall of black water, 800 feet high. It took exactly 45 seconds to completely erase a town that had stood for centuries. 2,000 men, women, and children. Gone for decades, the official record has maintained a comfortable lie. They called it an unpredictable tragedy, an act of God, but the buried physical evidence tells a very different story. This wasn't a natural disaster. It was a mathematically modeled corporate murder. In the years following the Second World War, Italy needed a miracle. They found it in concrete. The Vajont Dam was designed to be the crown jewel of European engineering. At 860 feet, it would be the tallest double-arch dam on the planet, a monument to human dominance over nature. But monuments require funding, and funding requires perfect optics. The project was spearheaded by SAID, the Adriatic Energy Corporation, a private monopoly with immense political power. To SAID, the dam wasn't just infrastructure, it was an ATM. But there was a fatal flaw in the design, not the dam itself. The engineering of the dam was a masterpiece. The problem was the container. The Vajont Reservoir was carved directly into the side of Mount Tok. In the local dialect, Tok means rotten or walking. For generations, the locals knew the mountain was fundamentally unstable. It was a colossal wedge of porous limestone and ancient landslides, held together entirely by friction. If you fill a valley with 150 million cubic meters of water, that water seeps into the porous rock. It lubricates the ancient fault lines. It turns the foundation of the mountain into liquid mud. SAID's own initial geological surveys warned of this exact scenario. They warned that the slopes were dangerously fragile. SAID's response was simple. They buried the reports. They fired the geologists who wouldn't cooperate, and they kept pouring concrete. By late 1960, Mount Tok wasn't just unstable. It was awake. In November, a massive chunk of the mountain, 700,000 cubic meters of rock, sheared off and plunged into the reservoir. It was a massive, flashing red warning light. The mountain was failing. The only scientific, rational response was to drain the lake, abandon the project, and evacuate the valley. SAID did none of those things. Instead, they built a secret laboratory in the nearby town of Nove deep inside a warehouse. SAID's engineers constructed a perfect 1:200 scale model of the Vajont Dam. They didn't build it to prove the dam was safe. They built it to see exactly what would happen when the mountain finally broke. They loaded the simulated mountain with gravel. They filled the miniature reservoir, and they pulled the lever. The engineers watched the fake mountain collapse. They watched a miniature wave surge over the concrete lip. They watched as the water decimated the models of the towns below. The data was absolute. A catastrophic tsunami was a mathematical certainty. But the engineers didn't use this data to warn the public. They used it to calculate exactly how high they could fill the reservoir without getting caught. They established a theoretical safe water level of 700 meters. They forged the safety margins. They submitted the altered reports to the Italian government, claiming the risk was completely contained. But you cannot forge physics. By the summer of 1963, the mountain was moving at a terrifying speed, up to a meter a day. Massive cracks opened in the earth, roads split in half, trees tilted at impossible angles. At night, the people of Longarone could hear the mountain groaning. The agonizing sound of ancient rock tearing itself apart. When the locals panicked, SAID issued a public statement. They called the groaning mountain normal settling. Anyone who questioned them was labeled a panic monger, an enemy of Italian progress. The evidence was buried, the trap was set. When an institution is willing to bury the physics of a mountain, they are certainly willing to bury a human being. Tina Merlin wasn't a structural engineer. She was a local reporter, but she actually listened to the people of the valley. She walked the slopes of Mount Tok. She saw the massive fissures tearing through the soil. She interviewed the terrified locals who SAID had dismissed as crazy. And then, she did the one thing the corporation feared most. She published it. She wrote piece after piece. Warning that a landslide was inevitable. Warning that the lake would overflow. Warning that the town of Longarone was sitting in a death trap. SAID's reaction was immediate. They didn't lower the water level. They didn't send safety inspectors to the mountain. Instead, they sent lawyers to Tina. The corporation sued a local journalist for spreading false and exaggerated news, for disturbing the public order. It was a textbook tactic of corporate suppression, bankrupt the whistleblower, dyed her credibility, keep the public blind, and keep the project funded. Tina was dragged into court, but she had something Sade's high-paid executives didn't. She had the mountain itself. The geological evidence of the collapsing slope was so overwhelmingly obvious that the judge completely acquitted her. He ruled that she was simply reporting the terrifying truth. The court had proven the danger was real. The government knew, the corporation knew, and yet, Sade did nothing. They entirely ignored the verdict, and they continued to raise the water level. They were gambling with the lives of 2,000 people, assuming they could somehow negotiate with a mountain that was literally named Rotten. But gravity does not negotiate. Gravity only waits. The waiting ended on October 9th at 10:39 p.m. The mountain did not just slide, it shattered. 260 million cubic meters of solid rock fell into the reservoir in a single block. It hit the water at 110 kilometers an hour. The kinetic energy was unimaginable. The landslide didn't just displace the water, it displaced the air itself, a localized windstorm. An atmospheric shockwave equivalent to 2 atomic bombs blasted out of the gorge. It hit the upper villages of Erto and Casso first, violently stripping the clothes off the victims before the water even touched them. Then came the wave, exactly as the secret laboratory models had predicted. An 800-foot wall of water surged up the opposite side of the valley, completely scouring the bedrock, before rebounding violently toward the dam. The dam held. Sade's concrete masterpiece was structurally perfect, but 50 million cubic meters of water simply overtopped it, plunging blindly into the narrow gorge below. In 45 seconds, Longarone was erased. The impact of the water and mud hit the valley floor with such devastating, unrelenting force that it gouged a crater 60 meters deep into the earth. 2,000 lives were extinguished in the dark, leaving behind nothing but mud, silence, and the terrifying truth of what corporate arrogance had just done. When the sun rose the next morning, the rescue crews found something that defied belief. The Vajont dam was still there. It hadn't moved a single inch. Sade's engineering was completely flawless. The concrete had held, but the valley below was a graveyard. 2,000 people were dead, entire bloodlines wiped from the face of the earth, and the men who buried the seismic reports, the men who watched the secret models fail in the dark, most of them never saw the inside of a prison cell. The disaster was immediately spun as an unpredictable tragedy, an act of nature. Sade was absorbed by the national government in a massive buyout. The executives walked away with their wealth completely intact. They gambled with a collapsing mountain, lost 2,000 lives, and simply cashed out. Today, the Vajont Dam remains exactly where it was built. It holds no water, it produces no power. It is nothing but a massive concrete tombstone. Permanent monument to what happens when corporate arrogance is allowed to overwrite the laws of physics. If an individual engineers a single murder, they are locked away forever. But when a boardroom buries the data that kills 2,000 people, it is just considered the cost of doing business. The Vajont Dam is just one file. There are thousands of other dark secrets locked away by the people in power. We are going to open every single one of them. If you refuse to look away, subscribe to Case Hush, because the truth never stays buried forever, and our next investigation has already begun.